In today's video, we are going to be looking at the key similarities and differences between this, the DDJ FLX-2, and the bigger brother, the DDJ FLX-4. Both of these controllers are heavily aimed towards new or beginner DJs, and so if you're in the market looking for or considering buying your first DJ controller, the chances are that you have come across either one or both of these devices. This FLX-2 retails here in the UK for about £150 to £160 or around the $180 mark in the US. This FLX-4 does come in at slightly more expensive, around £270 to £80 here in the UK and around the $330 mark in the US. However, is that price jump worth it? Let's get into it. So here we have the FLX-2 and the FLX-4 sat side by side, and the first thing that you'll notice, this FLX-2 is way smaller than the FLX-4 here on the right hand side. This FLX-2, I would estimate, is about 30 to 40% smaller than the FLX-4. And I will say this, the FLX-4 is compact. So this is even more compact. Like, it's definitely the smallest controller in the Alphatheta range, and in terms of all of the controllers that I have used personally, it's the smallest device that I have ever used in my life. That being said, compact does not necessarily mean that it's a bad device. In terms of build quality, very, very similar between both of these devices. They have an all plastic finish. To be honest, for the price point, you can't expect it to have kind of metal finishes that are found on more premium devices. Both have that all plastic finish. I did say in my unboxing video, and I still think this is true today, that this FLX-2, it does feel a little bit more rigid than the FLX-4. Now, I'm not saying the FLX-4 is going to suddenly disintegrate in your hand. I don't know, the plastic just feels like a bit more chunky on this FLX-2 in a weird kind of way. Now, when it comes to connectivity and accessibility to a range of DJ software, both of these devices, regardless on what you choose to buy, are going to have you very well covered. First and foremost, Rekordbox DJ, Alphatheta's very own DJ software. Both of these devices are what is known as hardware unlocked devices, meaning that you get access to a whole range of performance features without having to subscribe or pay anything extra. If you are unsure on what you get for free with Rekordbox, please, please, please watch my video on why the majority of DJs do not need to subscribe to this service. It's actually very, very comprehensive. I get though that not everybody will want to use Rekordbox, and so for that reason, these devices are also compatible with Serato DJ Lite. That is the free version of Serato. However, please note that Serato DJ Lite is only available via connecting a laptop. It's not mobile friendly. Rekordbox, on the other hand, is both mobile and laptop friendly, so it's across both. And if you don't want to use either Rekordbox or Serato, then the third option with both of these controllers is Algorithm DJ. Now, Algorithm DJ is brilliant for new DJs because it was mobile first, so if you didn't want to spend out on a laptop, it is very capable on mobile or tablet. Or if you want to still connect the laptop, of course, Algorithm has that functionality as well. Now, when it comes to connecting either your FLX-2 or FLX-4 to your DJ software of choice, there are two options available to you. Option number one is probably the simplest, is use the provided USB-C cable. This comes in the box with both of the controllers and plug directly into your laptop, your phone, or your tablet. Both of these devices will draw power from those devices, and so I would recommend making sure that those devices have a constant source of power because, of course, the battery drain is going to be greater. The second option is to connect to your phone or tablet via Bluetooth. However, please bear in mind that if you are doing this, you are going to need to plug in these devices into an external power brick. Now, there is a slight limitation on the DDJ FLX-2 in comparison to the FLX-4. And the limitation is this. The FLX-2 only has one USB-C connection. And so if you're using Bluetooth, of course, you would be using the USB-C connection to plug into your power supply. But if you are plugging in your USB-C connection to your phone, which is going to draw power from the phone, of course, you need to find another way in order to power up the phone. Otherwise, you're going to risk having that battery drain. And so for that reason, you might want to invest in either a USB-C splitter cable or an external charger for your phone that charges your phone wirelessly whilst plugging in using the USB-C port on that device. But if you're using Bluetooth to connect to your tablet or your phone, you can simply use the USB-C to connect to your power supply. That issue is alleviated completely with the FLX-4 because you have two USB-C connections on the FLX-4, so you can plug into your phone or tablet while simultaneously plugging into your power supply. So just something to bear in mind when it comes to connectivity of both of these devices. However, across the board, very, very flexible with both of these, either through a wired or Bluetooth connection. While we are on the topic of connectivity, let's talk about some of the other similarities and differences between the connections on these devices. Both of these controllers, regardless of what you go for, will allow you to connect to an external sound system. They do it in slightly different ways. However, it is good to see that you can do this on both the devices. And I say that because the predecessor to this, you were not able to connect to an external sound system via connections on the actual controller itself, which was bizarre in my opinion. Both of these controllers have headphone inputs, so you can monitor and mix your music. The only addition on the DDJ FLX-4 is it does have the additional microphone input. So if you are a streaming DJ and you want to talk to your audience, or if you are taking your controller to events and you're going to want to talk to that crowd, the microphone input is going to be very useful for you. And so if you cannot get by without a microphone input, then the FLX-4 is going to be the choice for you. Now let me come back to the connectivity of the sound system on the DDJ FLX-2. On the FLX-4, you have what is known as RCA outputs. They are the little white and red connections, and they will typically plug directly into the majority of speaker systems that are out there. The FLX-2, however, has a slightly cut back version, and it has this small jack output to the sound system. Now, if you're plugging into smaller sound systems, computer speakers, for example, then the jack connection is going to be adequate enough for you on the FLX-2. However, if your intention is to plug into studio monitors, like what I've got here on my setup, then the chances are that you are going to need to convert that jack connection into an RCA connection, which requires the purchase of an additional lead. That looks a little bit like this. Hopefully that will focus. It has a jack connection on one end and RCA connection on one end. So this side goes into the FLX-2. The other side connects into your cables. My camera's not playing ball today with the focus. So just consider that comes at an extra cost. Once you are connected to your sound system, a couple of extra things to bear in mind. We are going to talk more about controls in a moment, but the FLX-4, the master, is very much controlled on the front panel, as it is with most higher end mixers. The FLX-2, you have this little fiddly dial on the side, so that could be a little bit annoying. And it's the same for the headphone controls. It's that little fiddly dial on the side. On the FLX-4, it's a lot more kind of industry standard to find those controls on the mixer. So both devices have a great degree of flexibility, connectivity, but if you pay a little bit more for the FLX-4, you're just going to have a slightly increased amount of control. Now that we have covered off software compatibility and also connectivity, it's time to move on to some of those control features. What level of control do you get on these devices? Very quickly ahead of doing that, I just want to give a special mention to the people that have signed up for channel membership. You are mentioned on the screen right now. Thank you for your continued support. And if you want early access to videos like this, as well as additional exclusive content specifically for members, then please do consider signing up. There is a link down in my description. So what has been removed or reduced on the FLX-2 to make sure that everything fits on this very small footprint? Well, the first thing that you will notice, and most noticeable difference, is the reduction in size of the jog wheel. The FLX-4 jog wheel is considerably bigger than that on the FLX-2. Now, these jog wheels on the FLX-4 are not what are considered full size. If you were to go up a controller to the FLX-10 or even the Groove 6, they have what is known as full-size jog wheels, and they replicate the size of what you will find on CDJs. This FLX-4 has small jog wheels, but the FLX-2 has even smaller jog wheels. So if you are somebody that wants to get into scratching, wants to heavily manipulate songs using the jog wheels, you are going to find a lot more control when it comes to the FLX-4. On this FLX-2, I'm not saying that they are unusable. That's not what I'm saying at all. However, what I would say is you're probably going to have to make much finer adjustments and be a little bit lighter handed when it comes to manipulating the jog wheel, just because of that size difference. In terms of some of the other key controls that have been stripped back from the FLX-4 that you will not find on the FLX-2, let's look at the mixer section first and foremost. The FLX-4 has a beat effects section here off to the right. This is effectively what you will find on DJM and higher level mixers in the Pioneer DJ Alphatheta range. Now, this is a stripped back version here on the FLX-4. However, it is there. And it just means that when it comes to the FLX-2, I'm not saying that you won't have access to any kind of effects or being creative in your mixing. It just means that you're going to be a lot more reliant on your DJ software that you're using, which can make things a little bit more fiddly, especially when you are in the mix. Just because you're going to be reliant on that program and using your mouse and clicking buttons on a computer versus having everything at your fingertips. Next up, let's talk all about headphone control. Now, I mentioned previously that you can control the volume of the headphones on the DDJ FLX-2. That's all controlled via the dial on the side here. But apart from that, apart from the channel select in the middle of the mixer, you have absolutely no headphone control on this device on the mixer. Compare that to the FLX-4, you actually get a lot more control. Not only do you control the level on the front plate of the mixer, like pretty much any other DJ mixer out there, but you can also control the level of the mix. So this is the crossover between what you're cueing in your headphones and the master that is playing out to the crowd. The FLX-2 also does not have the level meters on the mixer itself, so you do not have a visual representation on how loud you are playing. And the only other things to mention here in terms of what has been scaled back, there are no trim dials that you can see here on the top of the FLX-4 on the FLX-2. Now, is that a problem in itself? No, because I feel like if you're using this FLX-2, you're going to be using it at smaller events. But trim is actually one of the most important features in my personal opinion, just because all music is recorded at slightly different volumes, and trim enables you to balance out the level of the mix. So with the FLX-2, you have a little bit more risk when it comes to having fluctuations in the volume of your mix. Now, you can control this a little bit in your DJ software, but it's just another thing where you are more reliant on the laptop. Now, in my personal opinion, I would have got rid of the CFX dials on the FLX-2, which is present on both, to create a bit of room for some trim dials. However, I get that they want to include some creative features on both of the devices because ultimately these devices have to be fun to use. But this is a key function that I think is actually missing. In terms of other features then on the mixer, the color effects are available on both devices. That includes the Smart CFX. That's where we have different effects that are layered. So you have like echoes and noises. They're actually quite fun to use. And then you'll also have access to all of the classic color effects as well via this dial on both devices. So noise, filters, sweeps, that kind of stuff. In order to activate it on the FLX-2, you will just have to press Shift and the master button at the top there, whereas on the FLX-4 it has a dedicated button. And the other creative effect apparent on both mixers is the smart fader feature, which is just at the bottom here and activated just off to the side here. So that is where it matches the speed of the tempos, and you can do tempo adjustments all in the mix, all automatically, and you can mix seamlessly and smoothly between different tempo ranges. So those features are available on both. Moving on to the deck section then, there are a few buttons that have been stripped away, most notably the loop buttons. These are the manual loop buttons. That, in my opinion, is no big loss because you still have a loop mode on the performance pads. And you also have a beat loop on these performance pads on the FLX-4. So ultimately, unless you want to do like a 3-beat loop or something weird like that, then you're really not going to miss those buttons there. And then the only other thing that is missing is the cue, loop and call buttons, as you can see there. That basically brings up your memory cues. You can scroll through them on the FLX-4. They're gone on the FLX-2, but you can do it in the software, so that's gone. Beat sync, which is right over there, has just moved down to the bottom here, so that's still present. And then the only other buttons that are missing is the pad selector buttons here. Now, with the pad selector buttons, there is a way you can do it in the FLX-2. You have to hold Shift and beat sync, and then you select the mode that you want. So these words here represent the different pad modes. So the top row of performance pads double up as pad selector buttons. However, when you are in the rekordbox software, if you connect an FLX-2 at the bottom of the software, you will also suddenly get some pad selector buttons as well. So if you don't want to hold Shift and hold beat sync to activate the different pad modes, you can also do it in the software. And really, apart from the size of those buttons, that is pretty much it. The only other thing to mention is obviously the size of everything is a little bit smaller. You can see here that these buttons are a little bit bigger. They do feel a bit more rubberized. These feel a little bit more plastic. And as do the play, pause and cue buttons as well. So we've had an in-depth look at both of these controllers here, and I have gone through all of the features that have been stripped off of the FLX-4 to make the FLX-2. Both of these devices open up a world of creative possibilities for DJs. In my opinion, they are both good devices. However, if I was to make one recommendation, especially if you are buying your first ever controller, I would say try and save up a little bit extra money and go for the FLX-4. Ultimately, the price difference between both of these devices is not huge. And for £120 or $150 more on the FLX-4, I think it's got far more features. For example, even the connectivity with sound systems, RCA outputs are always going to be better than that little headphone jack, and you also get that increased level of control. By the time that you have bought an RCA to mini jack adapter and then potentially plugging in another adapter to power up your mobile device as well as power this unit, you're already kind of spending out more money, bringing the price a little bit closer together. So if you can, try and hold out and get an FLX-4. Where would I use an FLX-2? I think if I was really on a very tight budget, I would probably stick to this. If there was no way you could get an FLX-4, then by all means, this is going to unlock a lot of creative possibilities. I just feel like you're probably going to outgrow this a lot quicker than what you would on an FLX-4. The addition of like a microphone, for example, that is absolutely huge. The fact that the FLX-4 has got beat effects built into the mixer, this hasn't. Again, a massive, massive addition to that, and in my opinion, for not that much more money in the grand scheme of things. The other use case scenario of this, if you're traveling and you want a little addition, a little travel buddy, maybe you want to try some mixes out on the plane, or you want to have a little party in your hotel room, this is brilliant. You could throw this in your backpack and you could get away with a quick DJ set on the go. Maybe you want to have a little DJ set by the pool or something like that, I don't know. Then this is pretty cool. You can just throw it in your backpack and away you go, just because the footprint is so small. But in 90% of use cases, I think the FLX-4 wins every time, in my personal opinion. Hope that you have found this video useful. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments down below. If you have made it this far, if I could ask a massive favor, give this video a thumbs up, and in the comment section, swipe across and hit hype. It boosts this video and puts it out to more like-minded individuals. Subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I'll catch you real soon.